now we look at this formula, which is a mushroom formula, and we say, how do I support all of these organ systems with as few a form, with as few a formula as possible? And this is
Right.
one way when you with that screen that you just had up. That screen shows you that there are multiple ways. Here we go. Multiple ways to support different aspects of your body's functionality and to support it in a way where you're only taking 2 to 4 capsules a day.
Right.
Some people will have 10 formulas. You've
Yeah.
got 7 mushrooms there. They're going to have at least 7 formulas, one for each of the things that gets supported there.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 169 of the Healthy Habit Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dadant of Healthy Habit Medical Center, and we've got Mr. Tom Dadant back with us here, folks. He spent the last 53 years of his life immersed in the natural foods movement and the dietary supplement industry. And for the last 28 years, Tom has represented major supplement companies as national science educator and herbal storyteller. We're going to learn a lot about herbs and mushrooms today, folks. Get ready to learn. He joined the Host Defense education team in May of 2017. And began educating retailers and consumers nationwide on the benefits of mushrooms as dietary supplements. Tom, thanks for joining us. How are we doing?
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Dr. Dion. I'm doing great. Doing great.
That's good. We're going to be breaking down mushrooms, folks, all things Host Defense Mushrooms. Tom's the national science educator at Host Defense Mushrooms. So give us a little intro to functional mushrooms, or however you want to call them, but that's how a lot of people come in looking for them. But tell us
That,
about this and how they're different from culinary mushrooms. Then we'll talk
all
about
right.
seasonal health benefits here in the winter.
Well, here's the interesting thing, Dr. Dion. Mushrooms have been used for centuries in many different medicinal traditions, all the way back to Dioscorides in Greek times and Avicenna in Persian time, and Chinese herbal medicine, Ayurvedic herbal medicine. So they have a long history of being used. Interestingly enough, there are gourmet mushrooms that have lots of what we would call nutraceutical or health benefiting qualities. And there are lots of other mushrooms that you couldn't eat even if you had a hacksaw. You can see some on the tree behind me, though, those little things that look like
Right.
shells sticking out of the tree. Those are very hard-bodied mushrooms, but yet they have some pretty amazing immune supportive properties. And that's really, what we like to talk about is the fact that more and more tests are showing that mushrooms have a way of communicating with our own immune systems so that they can not so much have an action as much as support an already active immune system. So, we know that mushrooms will support our primary immune system, like our microbiome. We know that they'll support our secondary immune system, our all of our cellular immunity. So it's a kind of a matter of which mushroom do you want to look at and what do you want to do with it. There are mushrooms called the mushroom of immortality, like reishi, the ones that you can see on the tree behind me there. There are mushrooms like agarikon that was considered the elixir of long life by Dioscorides back in Greek times. And there are mushrooms that the Chinese have called the dancing mushroom because it was such a delicious mushroom and yet so medicinally powerful that when they found it in the woods, they would dance for joy.
Yeah, there's a long-standing history of use of these, and they're even more powerful for your health than just a typical culinary mushroom that you can find in the grocery store, which
Oh yeah.
also have their own benefits, though. But these unlock certain medicinal properties that might not be found in the traditional mushrooms, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's, what's fascinating is there are, we cultivate 17 different beneficial mushrooms. And although we don't use them all in every formula, we have one formula called My Community, which has all 17 in them. But, we do focus on certain particular mushrooms when we're looking at a specific effect. I'll give you a good example. We have a syrup that we sold for a while called elderberry syrup, elderberry plus, and it had 3 mushrooms in it. But based on some testing that we've just finished helping do, and we've supplied some mushrooms for some clinical trials, we've decided to add an extra mushroom. So we took it off the market for a little bit and added an extra mushroom. That mushroom's called agarikon. And it is a fabulous mushroom as far as keeping the immune system not only active and very vigilant, but also very balanced. And so it's a great thing to put in, especially this time of year, because this is the time of year when people start complaining about respiratory stuff.
Right. Perfect. That's a perfect segue to my next question then. How can functional mushrooms like reishi, chaga, turkey tail, things you just mentioned, Tom, support immune health, especially during the winter months here? As this is airing right now in the store, people are listening. It's probably end of December at this point, or mid-December. Tell
Oh
us about
yeah.
winter and functional mushrooms. How can they help?
Well, mushrooms, like I said, have this way of working on each of the four segments of the immune response. So, if a lot of your customers may have been around for a long time, let's hope so. Let's hope they're aging wonderfully.
Yep.
But they may remember echinacea. And echinacea used to be a really big thing. Everybody was echinacea this. I mean, literally, one of my jokes was I even saw toilet paper with echinacea on it because everybody was like, "Oh, it's such a great immune tonic," but it was an immune stimulant. And people started realizing, well, wait a minute, maybe we don't want to just stimulate the immune system. Maybe we want to balance the immune system. We want to be able to stimulate it, yes, but we want to be able to balance that stimulation, not just keep stimulating it till it goes off the tracks. And that's one of the things that mushrooms have been over and over and over again when they're tested. And there are plenty of scientific studies on mushrooms and immunity. Um, One of the things that they're able to do is they're able to support as a prebiotic our microbiome. So every mushroom that we've tested up to this point, all of the 17 that we're cultivating, they're all prebiotics. They all support our microbiome. And as your customers probably know, our microbiome is our primary immune system. That's the first line of defense that we have. If we can support that, whether it's in our throat, whether it's in our bronchioles, whether it's in our, digestive tract, that's where it's hanging out. That's where we want to start with. And that's one of the reasons that mushrooms are such a great ally, is they all do that.
Folks, you're listening to episode 169 with Tom Dadant. That's a great reminder, Tom, that the gut health plays a role in our immune system too. It's not, it's actually the root issue of a lot of people's immunodeficiencies, or if they get sick all
Absolutely.
the time. They tend to not
Absolutely.
have a good, strong, resilient gut too. They tend to have other gut symptoms with it. So, Tom, give us some insights then on integrating mushrooms into daily routines for
Well,
seasonal wellness, some practical steps. Where can
absolutely.
someone start right now to
As
benefit
as
from
you
these?
know, as you know, we have both mushrooms in capsules, we have mushrooms in a liquid extract, and we have mushrooms in powders. Now, depending on what people are trying to do, we have a 7 mushroom blend called Stamets 7 that's like a daily multi of mushrooms, and it's not only supporting immunity, but it's supporting organ systems. Like I just mentioned, we have this wonderful elderberry syrup called Elderberry Plus Syrup. It has 4 mushrooms along with 2 different types of elderberry, which has been shown, and actually lots of scientific validation of the fact. I was just reading a meta-analysis, which is a study of all the studies that have been done on it, saying that it's a very dependable upper respiratory tract supporter. So the elderberry has some really great science behind it to support respiratory health, especially during winter season. And the 4 mushrooms that we've chosen also do the same thing. So basically, you have agarikon, you have chaga, you have reishi, and you have turkey tail. Every one of those are great prebiotic. Every one of them has an affinity, especially chaga has an affinity for the epithelial cells. Those are the cells that line our lungs. And what I find, here's what I find, because I've had a long history of different herbal traditions, especially Chinese, and the Chinese tradition liked to name the organ systems. So the liver, because it had so many things to do, they called the general. The heart, they called the emperor because it was like controlling everything. But they called the lungs the princess because they're so delicate and they're completely exposed to the outer world. There's nothing else protecting them other than this little tiny thin mucosal layer in the lungs. And the chaga mushroom has a really great affinity for that epithelial layer to help enhance and support the protective aspect of it.
That's a good answer, I would say. There's a lot to unpack there. And folks, you might want to watch this one a couple times. It's dense with information, just like Tom always does here. And check out even our past episodes with Tom on the podcast, like episode 149, where we covered nutritional profile of mushrooms, the mycobotanicals immune powder. We even covered some of the most common health concerns or conditions that host defense products address. So all that and much more there. It's an important one. You mentioned the Stamets 7, Tom. Give us a little discussion. We have new listeners every day, Tom, that have never even heard of Host Defense and yourself. That's why we like having your check-ins with us. Give us a little discussion on Mr. Paul Stamets, his contributions to the field, how he's inspired both consumers and research to be done on mushrooms, and just what role has he had in popularity of people wanting to start taking mushroom supplements.
Well, I'll tell you, Paul has been a mycologist and a scientist who studies mushrooms or fungi, and he's been doing that for over 43 years. He started a company back then called Fungi Perfecti, and he was selling mushroom growing equipment to support himself as he was finishing his studies, and because he just had become incredibly enthusiastic about mushrooms and what they can do. And about 20 years after he started Fungi Perfecti as a sole proprietor enterprise, where he likes to tell us that the first 35,000 boxes that he ever shipped out, he packaged by hand himself while he was growing his company. And he started a line of mushroom supplements based on his research, based on looking at all of the existing research at that time, and is really one of the most well-known and most outward-facing proponents of mushrooms and mushroom mycelium. He so much so that he when he was younger, he used to be a logger. So he worked in the logging industry as cutting down trees and so on. And he realized in studying mushrooms that they have a great deal to do with decomposing that old forest matter,
Right.
making new soil, healthier soil. So he approached the logging industry and said, "Hey, I have an idea about a better way for you to treat the forests that you're harvesting this wood from. Instead of burning all the slag and the leftovers from after they've cut everything down, why don't you inoculate it with mushroom mycelium and let the mushrooms do the job for you? It might take a little bit longer, but you're going to get a healthier forest the next time you plant." And they were all like, "Nah, it takes too long. We're not interested." So he actually took his own money. It was way early in his career where he was, it was hard to get the money, and bought half of an island off of the coast of British Columbia to do his own forest restoration project, just to prove that it works.
Right. So that's the name behind, or that's a story behind the name of the founder there at Host Defense Mushrooms, Mr. Paul Stamets. And you mentioned earlier, like I said, the Stamets 7. So this is the type of background that's going into these products and really separating them, making them unique from other mushroom companies. Tell us then about Stamets 7. Why was it named as such? Hence the name Paul Stamets. Tell us about it. Why this formula? Yeah, let's hear about Stamets 7.
So Stamets 7 is a combination of 7 mushrooms, right? And those 7 mushrooms were picked not only because each one of them supports immunity in a slightly different way, but because those 7 mushrooms specifically support different organ systems. So like I mentioned, we have chaga, which we know supports epithelial tissue, not only in the lungs, but because epithelial tissue line the intestinal tract, they're also supporting the intestines. And we have mushrooms like reishi, which is a beautiful cardiovascular mushroom, or maitake, which is a wonderful immune support, but also helps to support blood sugar already within a normal range. So we've got 7 mushrooms that are targeting most every organ system in the body, as well as each one of them contributing to the support of our resident immune system, both our microbiome and our innate immune system that we have, that we've inherited from our parents. And, that formula was tested way back in 2003 by a Japanese research firm. They got very curious because for them, they didn't really blend a lot of mushrooms together. They were doing 1 or 2 together. So they took the formula, they tested it, and they found out that because of the synergy of putting those 7 mushrooms together, you know how we always say the whole is greater than the sum of the parts?
Right.
They found out that was true for that formula, that it was like 4 times more effective at enhancing natural killer cells and macrophages than if you took the same 7 mushrooms individually throughout the day. So there was a synergy. And that was Paul's whole concept is, look, these mushrooms work together.
Right. And folks, you can go to hostdefense.com and then just search Stamets7 in there, or just Google Stamets7 host defense if you're out of state or out of town here. But we have everything here. We have the whole collection here at Healthy Habit. You can come talk to any of our staff or stay in the demo man. And Stamets7, basically, it's 7 different mushrooms, all deeply researched. And even that specific formula itself was studied, you said. Clarify that.
Yes, exactly. So not only are the individual mushrooms, which by the way, there's lion's mane, which we know is absolutely fabulous for cognition and nerve regenerative activities. We've got reishi, as I mentioned, a cardiovascular mushroom, cordyceps for energy, cordyceps for respiratory support, enhanced oxygenation, what we call VO2 max. We've got chaga again for the lining of the intestine and the lungs. We've got maitake to support blood sugar and insulin levels within normal ranges. We've got a mushroom from Brazil called Royal Sunblasei, which has a great broad range of support for multi-organ support. And we've got another mushroom called Messima, and Messima has some support for our skeletal system as well. So when you look at it that way, you can see, wow, that's a really broad ranging mushroom.
Right, folks. Again, here we go. Stamets
There it is.
7 species blend, and this is for daily immune support. We've been on the topic of seasonal wellness here today. Tom even mentioned how mushrooms are prebiotics naturally, so that can help support a good gut health. And of course, our immune system, at least part of it, is originating in how healthy our gut is, right, Tom? So tell
Absolutely.
us
Starting
more
from our
than
mouth and on all the way
right.
down.
And you broke that down in the beginning, the first half of this episode. So now, looking at a specific formula, and if you're listening on audio or customers in the store right now in Healthy Habit, when you get home or later on your phone, you can search us on YouTube too to get the entire visual setup here with me and Tom, where I'm actually pulling up the products as we go. So all of these then, Tom, are going to be playing a role in gut health as well. Is that correct? Or just some of them more than
That's
others? Tell us more about that prebiotic function now, looking at these.
okay. Now when you look at you look at the maitake, the lion's mane, the messima, all of those mushrooms have been tested as to show are they actually um, prebiotic mushrooms, and the scientific studies that exist out there, and you can go to places like pubmed.gov. That's pubmed.gov. And that'll bring you to a search engine. You can put in mushrooms and immune system or mushrooms and microbiome. You'll be amazed at the number of studies you'll find. So it's not like these are, this is somebody's, gosh, I hope this works. This is something that's validated by thousands and thousands of scientific research articles.
Right. And then we have the beta glucan. There's many reasons why they're supporting the immune system. There's all these different
Oh,
molecules and
absolutely.
principles. And what would be maybe a top 3 takeaway for how someone likes to know, why is this good for my immune system? And some good top 2 or 3 takeaways that they can tell someone, explain it to them, a friend.
Well, one of the things that we hear a lot is especially as we age, find yourself a good multi.
Right.
Find yourself a good multi, good assimilability, good effectiveness, blends well, works well together, all of that stuff, because our bodies need it. It's just like now we look at this formula, which is a mushroom formula, and we say, how do I support all of these organ systems with as few a as few a formula as possible? And this is
Right.
one way with that screen that you just had up. That screen shows you that there are multiple ways. Here we go. Multiple ways to support different aspects of your body's functionality and to support it in a way where you're only taking 2 to 4 capsules a day.
Right.
Some people will have 10 formulas. You've
Yeah.
got 7 mushrooms there. They're going to have at least 7 formulas, one for each of the things that get supported there.
Yeah.
And this is a way to lessen your burden financially and at the same time get really good, results for your money.
I like this because each one brings something unique to the table too. The
Hmm.
different mushrooms like chaga with its super high antioxidant dismutase, SOD levels, cordyceps with the fitness, but then all of them can uniquely also support the gut health together and
Yeah, and
regulate the immune system.
they work amazingly well as a team. And well, I love the team aspect. I love the
Right.
idea of people working together as a team with great diversity. So you get a big, broad range of effectiveness, not just one narrow little pointed facet.
Right. Perfect. So maybe we'll cover some dosage guidelines, safety tips for newcomers. Everyone wants to make sure they're taking things correctly. What would you introduce there? How do we dose this properly? Is it just what they say on the bottle, or how do we go about that?
I can tell I'm talking to a doctor
There we
when he
go.
uses the word dose.
I know, huh?
And
Yeah, it came out.
I have to use the word serving because that's our industry.
Right.
But so a serving size, what's on the bottle is what we know to be an effective amount of each of the, in this case, in each of those mushrooms, or in the case of maybe just a reishi by itself or a cordyceps by itself, what we know to be an effective amount for that particular mushroom to gain the effect that we're looking for, whether that's immune activation, whether that's immune engagement, whether that's immune recruitment, whether it's the ability to clean up and repair the body after the challenge has been met, or whether it's the ability to return to a state of vigilance where, okay, now what's next? What's next? And that, for me, that's where the mushrooms really do add because we've done testing on our own products. Dr. Dion, that's the thing that I really like about Host Defense is we test our own products. We're not just generically testing a mushroom and saying, okay, well, we put that mushroom in our product, so that's what our product must do.
Right. Perfect, Tom. So tell us, we'll close on this. We're getting to the end here, but I want to really cover this point on the overview of fungi's environmental role in ecosystems. How important is sustainable sourcing and all this? People hear, oh, this product's sustainably sourced, but why is that so important, especially for mushroom-based products?
Well, let's take chaga for instance. Chaga is an at-risk mushroom, and agaricon's even more at risk. It's actually an endangered species that it's prohibited from being wildcrafted. Now, you have a company that decides, and usually it's small, just a small company, and they decide, wow, I really want to get in on making some of the money, or they get inspired because they've tried mushrooms and they really worked for them. I mean, look at our industry was originally peopled by folks who couldn't find a medical help for whatever was ailing them, but they went to the natural sources and they found great response in their body. And so they said, I'm going to start a store and do this. So when you're wildcrafting, you're actually really hurting the environment, especially if you're trying to do a large product line. There's no way on earth with as much product as we sell that we could wildcraft what we do. So we sustainably cultivate indoors all of these mushrooms. Nothing comes from the wild. That way we can control toxin levels. We can control, we test the water we use. We test the rice that we grow the mycelium of the mushroom on. We test the air that's coming into the grow room. So everything is tested. Everything goes through purification processes to make sure it's as safe as possible.
Interesting. So do you have a particular favorite of yours? I'm sure you have a top two that you like or that you like to take throughout the year, or
Well,
maybe not. Tell us about maybe
well,
Tom's preferences.
I'll
People
tell
like
you,
to hear what the person that has this much knowledge behind this, what is he taking,
what are you taking? What are you taking?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I will be 76 in January.
No, you
So
don't.
not too bad.
You have the
Not too
energy of a
bad.
36-year-old.
And basically what I really love, the one that I love the most is our MycoShield, which is our throat spray, because that's 5 mushrooms that were specifically chosen to support that microbiome in your throat and your sinuses. Please don't spray it up your nose. That's just, a caveat. Just spray it in your mouth. It'll migrate to your sinuses, but it's actually feeding and supporting that microbiome, which is our primary portal of entry. Right now, we're going into that winter season. People can be coughing, they can be sneezing, you can be in a crowded bus or, and you've got people around you that are literally like, okay, that guy looks like a super spreader to me.
Right.
Um, but that spray is giving your immune system as much of a boost as you possibly can to, support what it's meant to be doing. And so that's my fave because I travel a lot
Right.
to do my job. I'm on like literally uh, week after next, I'm in upstate New York. So I love the MycoShield, but beyond that, I really, really, really do love not only our lion's mane, but our breathe. And that's so, when I mentioned the elderberry syrup,
Yeah.
that elderberry syrup and our breathe product, when it comes to, okay, I'm going to go on the road and I know I'm going to be exposed to a lot of things, I'm trying to support my respiration as much as possible. I'll take those two together.
the MycoShield is a spray, you said, and then what about Breathe? That comes in different formats, right? Powder.
Breeze comes in a liquid for those times when you really want it to act fast. It comes in a capsule, and that's really great for long-term use. And it comes in a powder in case you want to use a larger serving size, not dosage.
Right.
And for those people who really, it's like I take so many pills already. I'd like to find a powder that I can take. But that believe me, Dayan, I take so many mushrooms because we have so many broad-ranging formulas. Stamets 7, I do in a powder every day.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
got to have
it's
the classic in there. Absolutely. You got to have that. I
yeah,
was waiting for the Stamets 7, Tom. There
yeah,
it is.
yep. No, it's in there along with I do our Myco brew, which is a combination of coffee or cocoa or mocha, and so I love our cocoa, and it comes with lion's mane in it. And I just put some Stamets 7 powder in there, a little bit extra lion's mane, and if I'm feeling like I need a little bit more energy, I'll put some cordyceps, half cordyceps, half reishi.
Amazing,
Blend it
Tom.
all up and drink it, and
And
oh
then you're
my
good
God,
to
what a
go.
great way to start the day.
Yep. So then what would you leave us with then here today, Tom? We covered seasonal wellness. We hit on a lot of good, important topics today. Paul Stamets' contributions to the field, practical insights on how to actually incorporate these mushrooms into our daily routines for seasonal wellness. What do you want to leave us with? And then where can people find out more and stay in the loop?
Well, like you've told them, you can go to hostdefense.com and you can look at all of our different products, read about them, understand that's this we're very DSHEA compliant. We're not doctors, we're not prescribing, treating, preventing, but we are supporting immune functionality as much as we can, especially with research behind us. And what I would say is if you've never tried them, give them a try. You'll be amazed. If you've tried them, but you've never tried Host Defense, come on over. There's a reason that we have the largest market share in the industry. And again, our ethos is so planet centered and planet centered that, we offset 110% of all the carbon footprint that we create in making our product, which is an amazing accomplishment for a company our size. So give us a chance. You won't be disappointed.
Appreciate you, Tom. Thank you so much.
Dion, Dr. Dion, thank you so much. And next time, remember, not dosage.
Right. That's right. I got it. Well, thanks for correcting me on that. We'll talk soon. I look forward to it, Tom.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Always great.